Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Casual Spikes podcast. I am your co-host Dakota. Fucking damn it! Fuck!
I do that every time.
I know. I just confuse myself. All right. I'm like, all right, Dakota. That's enough pump fakes. Let's actually do this. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Casual Spikes podcast, post-ban edition, and we have a very special episode because more is going to happen here than what actually happened on the ban and restricted announcement, which of course we're going to be getting into in this episode, along with some cards that me and Randy find particularly enjoyable, if you will, of this new Tarkir Dragonstorm set, which I'm super excited to play in. Pre-release is this weekend, so definitely go ahead and check out your LGS and play in those events because I can't do it, so someone pour one out for the homie.
Yes, please. Yeah. I definitely can't go. I work every weekend now.
I know, and then being an adult's hard. Take me back.
I'm trying to just make money. I'm not trying to be an adult. I just need money.
FBGM, if you know, you know. But we are going to talk about the standard and modern ban list, or in some cases inaction and very obvious action taken in other places. Me and Randy mostly came up with a list. I am just going to piggyback off of some of those options, but we have some cards that we really do kind of like going forward in some of the constructed formats of Magic as well. So we're going to be showing off those cards here as well to try to fill out something that resembles a full-ish episode. But before we get into any of the ban list talk, before we talk about Tarkir Dragonstorm spoilers / I guess already revealed cards coming out, something like that, be sure, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, that you please do subscribe to the Casual Spikes podcast, a YouTube channel. Also ring the notification bell so you are notified of future episodes. And of course, check out the description down below for mine and Randy's channels, where we post a lot of the same things pertaining to competitive Magic. We do shorts, videos, all that fun stuff. It's free, easy way to support not only the podcast itself, but to support us as creators as well. As we do enjoy doing this, but we also enjoy getting to interact with the community and just get to put our opinions out there and watch people like absolutely skewer us for our opinions.
Listen, our opinions are only probably wrong most of the time. It's fine.
No, especially if you say anything negative about anything related to like a commander player's like favorite card, because I'm pretty sure that like people like on my Draco Genesis video were willing to like dox me. Like they had all my personal information on standby if I said anything remotely bad about the card Draco Genesis.
I don't even know what that card is.
It lets you cast dragon spells for free, like from anywhere.
Oh, okay. So it's like a 12 mana spell that's never gets you playing competitive Magic. Got it. Okay.
Well, yeah, and that was my whole preface of it, was just like players have this, so like you could do this in standard, but like most people are just doing this with omniscience, and it's kind of better because like the casting from anywhere really doesn't matter when you can just cast, you have unrestricted access to it, whatever. I had like a whole video, and then I was like, and then like even for commander players, like you can play this in like your dragon deck, but if you're just trying to like cast spells for free, like Omniscience is probably just a better card, because like the upside of getting to cast it from your graveyard or command zone probably isn't like that much, outside of like dragons. And there are a bunch of people that are like, you can cast your commander for free. Have you ever heard of Tiamat? I could play Tiamat and I could go get 5 dragons and I could do this. It's like, I don't care. let me put it out there for all the commander players out there. I love what y'all do. The format's fine. But y'all casuals like make it literally miserable to have an opinion on anything. I had someone tell me that I don't know what a good card looks like, all because I said that like Draco Genesis is like a cool card. I just don't think it's as good as Omniscience, and they were just like, well, you don't have good takes. And then like I just basically told them to fuck off, that they were salty, and they gave me no argument. So yeah, I'll be honest, I kind of crashed out.
I truly love casuals, because I think that with the problem I have, so like this is already off topic now, but commander players are terrible at evaluating cards for competitive Magic, and you can see it by like the complaints you see constantly in in or with Commander players where like, do you remember when there was like that big thing that went around where like somebody mildly popular or enough to have like a Twitter account that was noticeable said that Farewell was the most broken card printed basically for Commander. It's like it exiles all creatures, graveyards, artifacts, enchantments, or something. It basically it literally nukes the entire like board state along with graveyard. And like that went around, and so many Commander players were like, "That's so true." I'm like, no, play counter spells, play permission spells, play anything that isn't just I want to play my 12 mana spell, and when you interact with me, you're cheating. Like that is my views of like the average Commander player. Like the casual Commander players are just they keep Magic alive, unfortunately, because Wizards caters to them too much. But like, god damn, do they have the worst takes?
Hey, we're also trying to get them to play 60 card constructed formats as well.
Yeah, until they complain about it being too expensive as they pull out their 6 Commander deck.
I tell you what, there's a specific person, I don't know if they hold these values now, but there was somebody like way back when that was playing that like then later got into Modern, mind you, and playing like Grixis Shadow, which at the time was like $1,000 deck, but like complained about how expensive Modern was to like build a tier 1 deck, and as they're playing a Commander deck that is like completely foiled out, like I think oh shoot, it was like an Abzan Commander that like did like graveyard combo like bullshit or whatever, but it was like, oh cool, like we have like all these like original like shocks and fetches, like in not like original like fetch lands, but you know, we have all these like sweet like foiled variants of these like of our mana base, and then like all these other like Hermit Druid like foiled. It's like, dude, what do you mean? Like you could buy like 2 or 3 tier 1 Modern decks with like your Commander deck that you have. Why are you telling me that my format is so expensive and pricing people out when like and pricing you out when you have this like nearly foiled out Commander deck?
All right. Let's stop dunking on the casual Commander players. It's honestly too easy.
It's time to get to real Magic.
Yeah, back to 60 card formats that definitely aren't destroyed by constant BNRs that don't do enough and are scheduled for reasons.
True. So we'll start with Standard, and Standard we talked about here. At least maybe I made more of the argument, I don't know, that Standard was either going to get no changes, and then it slowly came to like, okay, they could ban 1 card. All right, well maybe they'd have to do this one, and I guess they did these 2, they'd have to do another one. So eventually, at least I came to the conclusion that it was going to be like 3 cards or no cards for Standard. And turns out 0 was the correct answer, because even though, you know, 3 decks control essentially 50%-ish of the metagame, and I think are very clearly like the best decks for a reason, and kind of nullify some of the other like strategies and things like that in the format. And I say nullify as in like, if you just want to play an aggro deck, why aren't you just playing mono red or grill aggro? If you want to play a mid-range deck, you know, why not play bounce or domain, you know, unless you couldn't afford the cards. But whatever, nuances aside, you know, that's kind of the conclusion that I came to as a player, is like all of these or none of these, because if you get 1 or 2, I think the third one or the second and third one just get a lot better, and then that becomes your metagame.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of come to the conclusion that Monstrous Rage, Up the Beanstalk, and then This Town Ain't Big Enough are kind of the 3 cards that needed to go. We kind of made the argument that if you take away Beans, the aggro decks just become too good, because the Bean decks can't compete against the other mid-range decks, and now will just easily fold to the aggro decks. You can't take away Monstrous Rage without the mid-range decks becoming immensely better. As the mid-range decks become better, Beans Domain just takes over the format, because no deck can go bigger than them, essentially. And if you take away Beans and Monstrous Rage, then the bounce deck just becomes the kind of de facto best deck in the format, and you don't want to just have something that's going to completely dominate the format. And This Town Ain't Big Enough is enough of a card that you can take away to not destroy that without allowing that metagame to still exist. Same thing with like if you take away Monstrous Rage, the red decks don't just die. It's not like they become unplayable, but they become a lot more fair. Blocking becomes a real thing again. And if you take away Beans, Domain doesn't just die, but it now becomes a much more fair deck that you can outgrind to some degree. As long as Beanstalk exists, you're never going to outgrind Domain when they can just, you have to kill Beanstalks every time they hit the battlefield, essentially, and you're still always going to be, essentially 1 for 0ing yourself because you're always going to replace the Beanstalk card with a freshly drawn card while you are down a card for destroying it because it has, when it hits the battlefield, draw a card. So this is kind of the thing that him and I have both come up with, what things that need to be banned. And then if you go and watch like my video, I made an argument that you could probably ban Manifold Mouse instead of Monstrous Rage as well, and that would also kind of fix the problem with Mono Red to where it's not just so snowballing. And that's like the biggest problem with Standard. Pretty much if you ask anybody, any streamer, any competitive Magic player, they'll all pretty much argue that Standard is just very snowbally to the fact of like, it's just very hard to come from behind. It becomes a lot of coin flips of who goes first. I think Doomwake said it best when he was playing against Esper Pixie or Esper Bounce at one point in time. He's like, the deck, you just can't, if that deck ever becomes gets ahead or is at least always at parity, it is doing more things and better things than what you're doing. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. Now, Domain's probably the only deck that can argue that because they don't have a lot of ways to interact with like their big domain creatures, or not domain creatures, sorry, their big overlords. But Pixie can still outrun Domain. It can outrun Mono Red. Mono Red can outrun both the other decks, and Domain can obviously go bigger and longer than both the other decks. So there's this like 3-way meta we have essentially, and Wizards decided that Standard is quote unquote flourishing. I'm not sure who is saying that at Wizards, but I would like whatever they're having.
No. Don't do drugs, kids.
Unless it's Wizards.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I think for a lot of the time, I mean, like, if we looked at, and probably the modern format, if I ran the numbers before, like, this ban announcement, I think if we had, well, maybe not. If you had, like, 3 decks in modern, how big that format is, that were about 50% of the metagame, or really like any other format that was like 50% of the metagame and like 2 or 3 different decks, like I don't think we would necessarily, even if there were 2 distinct archetypes, like even 3 that were like distinct from each other, I don't think we would consider that like a healthy metagame. And I think that yes, there was other players that had played different decks that showed up to the Pro Tour, which they did reference in the article, Pro Tour Aether Drift. I think if you also remember, like at that Pro Tour, Domain had like a 56% win rate in that tournament.
Yeah, I also want to preface that because I think people don't understand that like Pixie was also like the most metagame deck probably ever. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know how true that is, but like we had every single deck putting in like 2 to 4 copies of Obstinate Baloth or Wiltleaf Liege into their sideboard for Pixie. And the deck still had an almost 50% win rate, which means the deck is still very powerful. Like, if you are metagaming to where every deck in the format had Obstinate Baloth in its sideboard, and the deck still basically went 50-50, pretty good deck. I also really hate that they use the Pro Tour as an example, because the Pro Tour is a split format tournament, and you can do really well in Standard. We saw this happen. The blue-white player went like 9-1 in Standard, but fucking was horrible in constructed or in limited, so we didn't make top 8. And it's just like that's not a good representation. Like the first player to qualify for the top 8 also went 6-0 in limited, and it's just like like it doesn't really matter that like he was also doing well in constructed. He already had a great advantage by being 6-0 in limited. Like if you're not that strong of a limited player, or your pool was trash, or you just couldn't read the signals correctly, or insert whatever happens because you're playing against people who've done these limited type tournaments for years and years and years, like you can just be amazing in Standard and trash at limited and then never make the top 8, or even look like you're doing well because you just didn't do well in limited. And so I hate that they're like, well, the top 8 wasn't that, it wasn't completely dominated by Mono Red and Domain and Pixie, so the format's healthy. It's like, yeah, there was 2 decks that wasn't those 3 decks I just named. Oh, really good. And one of them was someone who also was like a 6-0 in limited. Like, congratulations, he was really good at limited. That's why he was able to like squeak in with his mediocre record in standard.
Yeah, I think if I remember right too, I'm pretty sure the top four was like 2 domain decks and then domain aggro.
Mm-hmm.
Domain mirror and then domain versus grill aggro in the top four. So I mean, even the different decks that made it that weren't the big three then got eliminated in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, with ease. Like the one was like the Jeskai Oculus deck, which is super sweet but can never beat domain. Like that deck just cannot beat domain.
Too big.
So you had like that super cool deck, and then I'm pretty sure the black green Overlord.
Yeah, it was like black green. Shoot, I can't remember. It was like black green beans or something like that, where they just played like
like more creatures in your graveyard makes these creatures cost less spells.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he did really well in limited and was able to squeak in because he did well in limited and then like won enough games in constructed.
I think he was like one of the, because I know it was like Zevin. I think Zevin was like the 4 seed or something like that, the 3 or 4 seed.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean though. Is he did way better in limited though than he did I think in standard, if I'm not mistaken. Because like that deck was also one that could not beat domain.
Yeah, I mean it was like it definitely like wanted to target very specific decks.
Yeah, but anyway, just like I think the fact that Wizards kind of said no changes for standard is definitely a big miss, and I think that like their reasoning is a little even more ridiculous because like their whole argument from the article was that standard is flourishing according to them, and we don't see anything. They're committed to leaving standard as a format untouched as much as possible, especially with we having 2 more sets getting ready to come out and then rotation, and then like Wizards will 100% come back out when the next time to do banning is and go, well, because we're so close to rotation, we shouldn't ban anything. Mm-hmm. Like they've done this before. Like this isn't even something that's like, oh, he's just like pretending to know what Wizards is going to do. Wizards has literally done this in years before. Like they've literally, oh, we're so close to rotation, why should we touch anything? And then it was still bad. And it's like, wow, it's almost like you shouldn't go based off of that. And like, don't get me wrong, domain will lose some things in rotation, which is nice, but like the red decks literally don't lose anything.
True.
They are only going to be just as strong as they are now. And it's just like, you're just pushing this problem off until more things happen. And it's just a terrible way to metagame this. And we're just getting out of standard being in the RCQ season. This is a perfect time to ban something in standard. We are 2 months away from the RCQs or RCs for standard. We have time to do things. If we're going to ban something, now is the perfect time. But they'll wait, and it's going to be bad.
Yeah, well, I guess might as well get standard ready for the next RCQ season after Modern's all said and done, and we've destroyed the regional championship. Seems like a good time.
Pioneer, they also said no changes because at this point, I'm convinced that Wizards isn't actually watching Pioneer. Now, I will fully admit that I don't watch Pioneer that often. I don't really pay attention to the format. But just a quick aside here. If you go over to Goldfish, and no, don't get me wrong, this is not the end-all be-all of how metagames are perceived. Last 30 days, if we're just looking at it, Rakdos mid-range is 21.5% of the meta, with Mono Red being 18.5% of the meta. That's healthy, right? It's a healthy metagame. No. It gets better when we drop it down to 14 days, and Mono Red becomes 32.4% of the meta, and Rakdos becomes 18.4% of the meta. Now, you might be thinking, well, Randy, what's the third deck? Clearly, that's still a high number. And it's Jund Sacrifice, with 5.5% of the meta. So, literally a 13-point difference between second and third place, and a 28-point difference between first and third. That's how you know you have a healthy meta when when we have, one deck essentially is 30% of the meta, that's healthy. We definitely haven't banned things for less in Modern.
Never.
So,
we would never do certain things.
So clearly 30% of the meta game in the last 2 weeks is healthy. And so that's why I went back to 30 days, because like there's a big spike because, Mono Red dominated the last Arena Championship in the top 8. It was like 6 of the top 8 decks or something ridiculous, with all top 4, I think, being Mono Red. So,
was it really?
Yeah, it was ridiculously bad.
I thought the top 16 was like pretty diverse. I guess it just... I thought it was more diverse than that. I didn't think it was that crazy.
No, give me a second here. I have the picture. I think I even sent it to you.
Possibly.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, top 8 brackets was Is It Phoenix, Mono Red, Mono Red, Mono Red, Mono Red, Mono Red, Mono Red, Team Analysts. So yes, 6 of the top 8, with the top 4 being all 4 Mono Red decks.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. So definitely, the last 14 days will look worse, but like when you go back the last 30 days, it still doesn't look better. Like, it's just legitimate problems that, Wizards just doesn't seem to acknowledge pioneers of a real format, and until it becomes back into the RCQ season, I don't think it will ever get fixed.
And chances are that it's never going to come back because it is bad, but they won't acknowledge that it is bad.
I think Pauper might have a better chance to become an RCQ format at this point.
Yeah. Hey, Pauper has High Tide too, and I love me some High Tide, so I'm gonna have to get into the format.
Yeah.
So Pioneer, Dumpster Fire.
Yeah.
Standard.
The fire is starting.
Three deck Dumpster Fire.
I think the mice have started it.
True. No. Oh man. Imagine 3 mice. It's kind of funny that one of the best red creatures is a bird, and we're like, this is like the best thing ever. Like, there's nothing that could touch this, and then 3 mice came in and dethroned the bird.
Oh my god, it is crazy. Slick Shot Show Off came out. That was the set before Bloomberg, right?
Yes, I believe Outlaws was just the set just before Bloomburrow.
Yeah, so we had Outlaws come out, Slick Shot Show Off come out, new hotness was taking Modern by storm. People were winning ridiculously fast with Prowess decks. We had a whole bunch of stuff just going on. And then, if by overnight, the mice came out and just immediately said we were the best thing to do, why are you looking at this bird?
Sucks to be you.
But I guess we can talk about Modern next now.
Yeah, because it was the only format that I actually saw changes. The only one that really saw any changes.
The only one that we play.
The only one that we play. Yeah, whatever.
But
Tuck Legacy. Anyway. Yeah, so Modern got the change that we were all expecting. And just Underworld Breach finally getting banned from the format. The perceived most broken card in the Teamer Breach deck, and effectively killing it off. Mostly, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, so I did think that Wizard could have done like the most probably hilarious thing possible and rebanned Mox Opal. I think people would have lost their ever-loving mind, and I would have loved it, just because it also would have been like the worst thing they could have possibly done. It would have been like unbanning Grave Troll again, just like, we shouldn't do this.
The only difference is that Grave Troll was like, I don't think Grave Troll was even really like that expensive either. Like when it was unbanned.
It might have gone up to like $10 or something.
It wasn't like what, $50-$60 that Mox Opal was, and then being like might as well have been $500 and like 5 grams of ketamine to like own a copy of Mox Opal.
You get Elon Musk too excited.
Ooh. I just started to stream 24 hours. Yeah,
But no, yeah.
actually, I had a team of people that went to the second pro tour, and we were like the best in the country and everything. And then we ended up getting second place, and I was like, wow, like this is really good. And then I went and I finished grad school.
Moving on. Underworld Breach got banned though, which is what everyone expected to happen.
Yep.
I do think that this leaves Modern in a weird position where I think that Energy is probably still going to be the best deck in the format. I think going forward, I think that it loses nothing, and its biggest competitor is a deck that also likes to put itself down to like sub 10 life total pretty fast, which seems bad to do against a deck that can just kind of win on a good curve on turn 3. So we'll see if
True.
that. And like Energy just gets better because it doesn't have 12 dedicated sideboard slots now to one deck. Like that was the biggest thing holding back Energy is it had to dedicate basically its entire sideboard to not lose to the Breach matchup.
Also true. Based.
So
Yeah. I honestly, the big change to the metagame is the fact that like the best deck in the format is no longer the best deck in the format. Arguably the worst like self mill deck now in the format, or a worse self mill deck, because I've seen some like players playing like Kethis combo, and like I even played that like on stream, and that was a roller coaster. Like that deck is unbelievably stupid to play against, and I hate it.
it's a weird deck.
It's super weird, and like I said, it probably ends up being like the best like self mill deck in the format. I can't even say mill because mill does technically exist in Modern.
It does.
But
Go back to the security.
yeah, but for really like the metagame from there doesn't really change, because if like we look at it, the Orzhov mid-range decks were the most played deck behind Breach, or at least started to kind of get up there in percentage, like not really rival Breach, but they were certainly up there. And again, we liked a lot of the white cards in like the sideboard. Some of the black cards are pretty good as well, and you just get both colors. You get to play great creatures that you can just like extract every little bit of value, and Ketramos is the engine that the black-white deck really wanted, because it could grind with people, but now the fact that it's going to be able to grind with you and also draw cards just means that you're just never like out grinding it. You're just never out grinding Orzhov. Titan, I mean, is the only deck really to beat Breach like pretty consistently, it seemed, or like at least on a level that like Orzhov could beat the Breach deck. So and that deck's been around forever, so that's going to be good. Boros Energy was like one of the best decks before any of this nonsense happened. Why would it not be one of the best decks? And Eldrazi has a bunch of different variants and a bunch of different ways that it can fight all the other decks. So like, why would it not continue to at least be a deck that players look at?
I think Eldrazi gets better now that Underworld Breach is gone. Like now that the Grinding Station deck is gone, they don't have to pretend that they need to play Karn, the Great Creator, anymore. And that just frees up spots in the deck and makes your sideboard better. Like when I went to Charlotte, I purposely wasn't playing Karn because it was just Karn is like the worst card against anything else that wasn't Grinding Station. Like if you weren't playing against Grinding Station, Karn was pretty much a dead draw, and it just hurt every time. And so I cut it for making different metagames or different matchups better, basically. And it didn't matter because like I still just like 1-3 scrubbed out. So
The big
is what it is.
sad.
But I think the Eldrazi decks get better, and I think they're gonna get better even more because of the new card from Dragonstorm.
Oh, Mox Jasper.
Yeah, that's the one.
We need dragons in our Eldrazi deck.
The 16th best Mox printed.
I mean, if you think about it, no, I'm kidding. I'm not even going to try to think about it. I'm not going to jump through those hoops. I'm not going to do what the people want.
Outside of that, Legacy did get 2 banned with the Troll being banned and Selling Micah Spawn being banned. I don't play enough Legacy to know. I know Troll was banned to kind of hinder Reanimator a little bit, just so it could be a little bit less broken. I don't know if that's going to actually fix the problem. People have kind of been calling for a Reanimate ban or a Entomb ban. for a minute now, so I'm not sure how that's going to fix it. I assume Michael Spawn is good getting banned because you can fetch up Wastelands, which is bad. Like, that was kind of what I heard of why Michael Spawn needed to be banned. I don't play enough Legacy to know anything. Vintage had no changes. Yay or nay, I don't know if that's good or not. And Pulper had a bunch of changes, which people seem to be happy about, but they also have a dedicated committee who is working on that type of thing. So
true.
I do know one of the Pulper players is super involved on like the Reddit Pulper as well, and will constantly refresh it and check it and listen to the will of the people, so to say. And I know they're trying a bunch of like unbanning things to see how it goes type situation. Because I know like Prosthetic Prism had been banned for I think almost as long as I've been paying attention to Pulper. That card was really powerful, which is funny to say, but that's only because the Tron lands are also commons, and that's why it's so powerful. I know they're trying that out. High Tide got unbanned, which is another thing that they're doing a trial unbanning on, basically, which is fine because like Pulper's already like a non-existent format for when it comes to cost. Like you can build a tier 1 Pulper deck for like $50.
Yeah.
So like when you're looking at like spending $50 to build a tier 1 Pulper deck, a $4 comment getting unbanned is not going to be like, whoa, you've just destroyed the metagame, and now people are going to be so invested in this. You can do this. It's so much easier.
True. Popper's there.
And I don't think anything else that changes either. Yeah, no. Yeah, there changes
No.
anything else.
Also note, there was the North American Championship for Legacy and Vintage, I believe, last weekend. And I've been watching a little bit of it just because watching players play Vintage, to me anyway, is like pretty entertaining.
Fair. I like Vintage. I've never gotten into it. I should get into it on Magic Online. It's like dirt cheap.
Yeah, that's like the biggest bang for your buck. $30, $40, $50, $60,000 decks that you can play for probably less than the standard decks that are online.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, honestly. When you,
I don't even think that's an exaggeration either. I want to say it's probably pretty cool. Like, you play like the Jewel Shops or something like that, where they're playing like, I think 3 or 4 different Moxes. Obviously, every deck's playing like Black Lotus, and most decks are probably playing Black Lotus.
So the Shops deck is $57,000 on tabletop. For Magic Online, it is $393.
Okay, so it's actually more expensive than I thought.
It is still, though, like, you went from $57,000, essentially a brand new car, to a car payment.
Or, if you really think about it, it went from the cost of 1 tank of gas in America to, I can't even say it. I can't do it. It's now rent in another country, anywhere else, literally anywhere. Capitalism, baby.
Super good. But no, I mean, the ban announcement kind of went how everyone expected. I think, obviously, Legacy and Pulper having probably the biggest shakeups, where I don't know if anybody really expected that. I'm not super tuned into Pulper, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend I am. Same thing with Legacy. I was surprised by the Legacy bans, but also not super tuned into Legacy anymore. So, not too surprising, but surprised. Modern had the most obvious ban probably since Nadu. Like, it was just pretty obvious. Like, you're either banning Underworld Breach or you're declaring Modern a dead format. These are your options. Choose accordingly. Pioneer has been told that it is not a real format anymore, once again, and Standard's still in its weird thing where, is your thing better than Domain, Esper Bounce, or Aggro? Or Mice Aggro? No? Then why are you playing it?
Yeah, exactly. Standard just, I think we're still scared of banning too many things, or just worried about banning things, period, unless they're like incredibly problematic. And I wonder if like beans, like any of these other cards that just kind of like survived, is just because of, like, there's also two other problematic cards here, and it's like, well, it doesn't seem like it's a problem because they all kind of keep each other in check, and the problem is the three of them keep each other in check, but then like they also check the rest of the format for the most part. So it's like, well, like, this is fine, rather than the alternative being the, like, well, what if we ban these cards and people really enjoy playing them, they stop playing the format, and then, like, even if the metagame's healthy, like, we still push players off because we ban standard cards. So I guess it's like, live with a format that at least has the illusion of being healthy while probably not being healthy.
I mean, I think the biggest problem with standard as a whole is that they made it too big. Like, I grew up playing Magic when standard was still a block format. We used to have, block sets where we have, 3-4 sets in a block, and then you have like 2 or 3 blocks in standard, along with like a core set in there to help kind of round out the whole thing. And then we have rotations, and we lose a block, we add a new block, and things kind of made sense, and people understood it. And then Wizards like, we're no longer doing blocks, and I think it went downhill from there.
Yeah, with them like changing how rotation works, and obviously it's not put into, like, when they design sets, that's like, okay, well, by the time this set comes out, we need to prepare to have cards that previously would not have been in the same standard set or in the same standard format as these cards. Now we have to account for that. It's just something that ends up changing, and it ends up like, we've seen at times too where a good example of it is during like the Battle for Zendikar, like Shadows of Innistrad era, where it was like, I think we only had Liliana, the Last Hope in standard, and like Emrakul or whatever for like I think a year, like 12 months of having this card legal, but then we had like 24 months of like Gideon Ally of Zendikar, whereas like we're like one block, like one, two block set away from each other or apart from each other. However, it ended up working out, and it was like, we have one card that we should have had for 18 months and another card that we should have for 18 months. One got an extra 6 months, the other one got 6 months taken away from it, just with them expanding it and then like reeling it back in. So it just in general, I think, creates situations where you have cards that are designed with a specific format in mind that then changes because now instead of interacting with the cards that you thought were going to be there, those cards are now not there. Or I didn't think about it interacting with cards from this set from 2 years ago, because this set shouldn't have been in standard at the time that this was being designed for and released. So maybe we're just trying to, I don't know, maybe we're just nitpicking a little too much, but at the same time, I think that they have to be, like, if standards are going to be this big, you have to be willing to make changes when the need arises.
I think the biggest problem we saw happen was when we had like Fable the Mirror Breaker get banned. The black card that always escapes my name. It's like quad black or something like that, or triple black.
Oh, Invoke Despair?
Yeah, Invoke Despair. Like, we started banning cards just because people were upset with them. And Wizards kind of like has now retroactively gone the opposite end of that, to where like, we just won't ban anything unless it's warping the format and that's the only deck that you're playing in standard. We're not going to ban anything. And I think that's a much worse idea, because like, we had Aether Drift come out and like basically didn't make an impact on standard. Like, there's some cards getting played out of Aether Drift, right? But there's nothing that like redefine the format, and like cards that are like able to make their own, like make a deck out of them, or like, like we have the Monument, where you discard a card and you can draw a card or lose 3 life, whatever. Like, that deck is super good, but it's so trash because it can never be faster than like the aggressive decks. Like, don't get me wrong, it can beat the aggressive decks on good draws, but like overall, I'd much rather play Mice than that deck. Like, I just have a better metagame against that than I do against Mice. Like, it's just, you've made this format that is so incredibly fast, and then if you want to do anything big that's slow, Domain's just a better choice for you. Like, whatever you're doing, Beans Domain is just better.
Beans.
It's just this weird, like, you've made a thing where you need to be hyper aggro, which we already have, like, essentially the quote-unquote best hyper aggro deck you can make, or you need to be bigger than them, and we have that with Beans Domain. And it's just like, cool. You've now just like destroyed the two ends, and like Esper Bounce sits right there in like the middle between the two, only because it can play enough removal that's good against the aggressive deck, that also isn't horrendously trash against the control deck, because it's just fast enough to be able to go underneath them and be just enough annoyance. And so you've made this like weird little fucking triage of like 3 decks, and it can only be 3 decks. And we see this when we have, streamers who play, fucking 8 hours a day of Magic going, yeah, man, it's like, I can play other decks, but they're not better than what those 3 decks are. And you have pro players and pro Magic players in general going, yeah, those are the 3 best decks to play. There's not really a reason to play one that isn't them. And that's my fear about the new Dragon set, is that it's not going to make enough of an impact to where, why would I play these? Like, why would I play some new strategy over these other 3 that are already tried and true?
It's a good way to sum it up.
Yeah. I also think that there's another big problem too, which is how Arena is, where it's so cost efficient of a client to be able to like make cards and grind out things, and like people can't afford to like grind 8 hours of Arena every day and also like live a life. So like, if you're gonna build a deck, you're just gonna go copy and paste one of like the most popular or most like consistent powerful deck there is, and so then you're just gonna jam that deck a bunch until you can eventually maybe play something else you want to play, but you usually only have like enough wild cards / I can afford to spend X amount of money and build this deck. So I think that's why you see Arena have a lot of like the same 3 decks, as well as like you have a bunch of people who don't have a reason to brew because it's so cost efficient to brew.
Yeah, I think if you're talking like the average person, because like I know I've told my wife like plenty of times, like just draft, like you have enough of the stuff, like instead of just having to buy packs from like whatever set to like hope that you open the card or open up enough packs to get wild cards, like just draft whatever set it is, like actually play Magic, and then eventually you'll get enough stuff where like you'll fill your vault, whatever, like earn enough packs like playing, and then just kind of like do that thing. And she's like, well, I just don't enjoy playing limited. And so like if you don't enjoy playing limited, then you're just like putting a bunch of money into this client, and you don't really get anything out of it. Like, at least Magic Online, you're not supposed to do it, but like they have different services where like you, like mana traders, for example, like will buy tickets from you and like put it into your account or whatever, and like you can use those to like pay off your month, your subscription, whatever, however often that you end up doing it. So but Arena, there's no possibility that you can't sell your extra wild cards to get something else. You can't sell your extra gems or coins or whatever to get anything. It's like once you spend the money on Arena, you're not getting anything out of it unless you're playing in the Arena Championships, you're playing in the qualifier events, you're playing in the direct events, whatever. So, yeah, unfortunate.
It is a problem, I think, of that client as a whole, and I think that's the problem of what keeps Standard very like stale as well. But I don't think Wizards are going to change their cash cow anytime soon.
Heck no. It's all depressing. You know what isn't depressing? Spoilers.
What?
Cards.
It's not really spoilers anymore. Everything's been spoiled.
It is not. Oh, shoot. Can you help me out? Okay, there we go. Thank you.
All right, you good?
Thank you, Overlay. Yeah. So, Randy basically gave a list of cards, and I'm going to piggyback off of some of these. I don't condone necessarily all the picks on here, but I for one am willing to stand on business.
I will like preface this to where I don't think any, like, there's a couple cards I think we'll see a lot of play, and these are like just cards I think could fit into other decks, could fit into the format, could be okay, could see play in the other formats. This is not something where I like every card on here is just like 10 out of 10 is going to get slammed into 16 different decks. If you're not buying this card, you're going to be out type situation. Like, these are just cards I could seeing play in Standard, and current decks are already available in Standard. And we can start off with the first one here. It's was it uh Mayrang River Regent. Um, it's a 4 mana, or sorry, it's a 6 mana, 6/7, four generic, 2 blue, flying. When this creature enters, return up to 2 together. Target non-land permanents to their owner's hand. We're really playing this for the Coil and Catch. So 4 mana, 3 and a blue, instant Omen. Draw 3 cards and discard a card. So the Omen ability, you have to shuffle it then back into the owner's library. I could see this card seeing play as a whole in, I guess, like the blue-white decks running it, just as an instant speed draw effect. I could see the Omniscience decks running it as a way to draw, and you get the discard effect that you want, just as like another thing to play. Now, I don't think this card's broken, it's amazing or anything like that. It's just a card that I think could fit into some of the other strategies. I cannot hear you.
Of course, I muted myself so I could drink my water, and I didn't unmute myself. I need a button for that. Yeah, like, so I think that this is kind of a pretty interesting card. Like 4 mana, like draw 3 at instant speed. I mean, historically speaking, like 5 mana draw 3s or like 6 mana like draw 4s have been pretty good. So I could at least see this as being like a card that some of those decks want to play just to be able to kind of draw through their deck. Like stock up is also a heck of a card. So I mean, really, you play like 2 or 3 of these in your deck, it's like totally fine as like a win condition on their own as well. That you could like play this and then like you can end up stock up to go and dig to potentially find this, and then kind of continue it going of just getting to go up on cards in those situations where you have the mana to spend.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. Is like it is one of those cards that could fit into a couple different decks. Is it guaranteed to fit in? Will maybe just be a bulk rare? Probably, but it's something I can see getting played. It's not anything broken. It's not anything crazy. It's not anything that like, oh, you got to buy 4 of these now, pre-order them. The format's exploding, but it's something I think that could see play.
True that. You know, it's at least an interesting card. I'll give you that. It's at least interesting to me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's, like I said, playable Magic card that might fit into like the blue-white strategies realistically, whether it be the Omniscience deck or the like blue-white control deck, or maybe, I say maybe even like Domain might want something like that. There's just a couple different card decks that could like play that card if it wanted to. Moving on then to what's it?
Tursa Light Shatter.
Yeah, Tursa Light Shatter. 2 in a red for 3/3 haste. When it enters, you can discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. Also has some other text on here that when it attacks, if there are 7 more cards in your graveyard, exile a card at random from the graveyard, and then you may play that card this turn. Notably, you can play it, so that means you can get lands from your graveyard and play them as well. I don't think that ability is a super important part. I think the fact that it is just a good card that kind of fits into the Oculus strategies, fits into the Monument strategies. Just another card that goes in there where like you want to discard and draw type situation. So I think it can fit into a couple different decks. I don't think it breaks them or makes them more playable than they already were. I just think it's another card that you have now more options to do. And it having haste is a little bit of a decent aggressiveness. And sometimes you're going to have 7 cards in your graveyard and hit something cool.
Oh, you could almost play this in just the like mono red strategies. I mean, like it attacks like 7 more cards in your graveyard. I mean, a lot of the red strategies and stuff. I mean, just getting to potentially buy back like Monstrous Rage is a good one.
Yeah.
And we see from like a lot of the mono red variants, they're playing Burst Lightning and Lightning Strike. So I mean, I could see a world where just getting to like discard, even just playing this to like discard 2 lands, like draw 2 cards, and then getting to attack for 3 immediately. I could see this as like a 1 or a 2 of in like mono red, potentially.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll just cut Swift Spear because you already said that's the worst card, and we'll put a 3-drop in place.
One Swift Spear.
That's how you do it, right? Is you cut 1 drops to put 3 drops in play in your deck.
Yeah, you can still do it because you're playing like 22 lands.
Exactly.
I'll pass it.
It's gonna work out.
I should already have these teed up.
It's all right.
Steel Cutter.
Yeah. So, was this Corey Steel Cutter? It's a 1 in a red artifact equipment. It also is 1 in a red to equip, and equip creature has +1/+1 haste and trample because we want to give more red things trample. It also has the flurry ability, so whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 white prowess monk creature token, and then you may attach this equipment to it. I think that this could see play in a couple of different strategies. I think this could spawn a little bit different of a red aggressive cell as well. I think that this could see play in that as like a 1 or 2 of. It's just a way to build an army in a can essentially. You already want to go wide with the strategy as a whole. Just more options. Also, it's not terrible late game when you have this out just by itself and you draw any of your mice. Being able to give them haste and trample is amazing. And also, targets for Valorant as well. So either you're making your little heroes bigger, or you're making your challengers trigger, and you're getting a card off the top of your deck. This is something I can see easily getting played, maybe even in the sideboards against more of like the long game strategies. Just something I think is going to see a lot of play theoretically. It could just also be a giant bust and no one plays it, but I think it has a lot of upside and potential to be good.
Yeah, I think the really interesting part about this card is that you can just have it sit on the battlefield. You don't even necessarily have to be like in an aggro strategy. I think if you're just a deck that wants to play multiple spells, like you could just afford to have this sit on the battlefield, and like this is just going to generate a 1/1 prowess token, every other turn. Like even like in the long shot. All right, like say we're playing some kind of like control deck, and like this could just be a potential win condition, just because like you can just every turn, like on your turn, cantrip, all right, set up my hand, go, and then on your opponent's turn do the same thing, make another 1/1. It's just like getting to make another 1/1 every turn, like while you're kind of churning through your deck, casting your cantrips, clearing the way for them, and then also giving those creatures prowess, getting in and attacking. I could see a world where that's at least something that's interesting, even though it is an equipment and you're generally playing a lower amount of creatures or no creatures in some cases for some control decks. So it'll kind of suffer there, but if you can convince me that there's like a good like spells matter deck that also just plays off of cheap cantrips and just playing cheap spells, and just trying to cast your second spell, then yeah, I think that this would just be a good make a token every turn.
I think the biggest thing that's great about this is most most like artifact equipments, the more you like when you draw your second, third copies of it, you're just like, this sucks. This is like one of the few ones where if like you have 2 of these on the field, it's just as better. You're just like, oh cool, now I have 2/2 attacking with haste and trample that are still going to get bigger off of each spell I cast. And it's like when you have 2 of these out, like you can just literally win the game off of like casting 4 spells over the course of like 2 or 3 turns, where you just like double spell one turn, double spell next turn. You're just like, oh cool, I guess now I literally just built an army out of not having a board state.
Right, yeah.
And notably this is when you cast your second spell, so it's not like spells matter. Even like you just go 1-drop creature with this out, you're like, oh cool, now I just cast my second spell, I've now triggered this. So I think this has a lot of upside to it. It's just whether or not there's an actual shell that works for it in standard will be the true question.
True, you have to figure out if you're going to die to Monstrous Rage or not.
Well, they always have it, and the blocks don't matter.
Also true.
All right. Moving. Oh god.
There we go. Room scale. I was just getting you ready for the dragon.
Gotcha. Yeah. Rune scale, Stormbrood. So it's 3 in a red for a 2/4 flyer, and then whenever you cast a non-creature spell or a dragon spell, it gets +2/+0 to end a turn. And then also has the Omen ability of Chilling Screech for 1 in a blue, instant, counter target spell with mana value 2 or less, and then you shuffle it back into the owner's deck. This is another one where I think that if there is a good control-ish shell, like maybe like a Jeskai shell or something along those lines, where we could see this as a good counter spell for removing removal spells, low drop creatures, things like that, and then also just, hey, we've gotten to the mid to late game, I can now have a 2/4 flyer that I'm going to play a spell or 2, attack for 6, attack for 4, and eventually this is going to kill your opponent pretty fast.
Sure. I don't
mean,
have much to say about this guy.
like I said, these are not like all hitter, like home run, gotta buy these today type cards. This is just something I think that could see play, has the ability to. I could see this maybe getting played in the like the Jeskai list that's running around, like the Jeskai Oculus list that runs around. It's another creature that can also deal like another creature in the mid to late game. It also has like a 2/4 body, so it's decent at blocking overall. It has a good like counterspell ability early on if you need that. It just does a lot of things, and Greg's being annoying already.
The more I look at some of these Omen cards, I thought, man, this is like an actual like interesting design space of do a thing and then it go back into your deck. But there's only like a few of these where I'm like, I want it back in my deck so I can do the Omen thing. And like RuneScale Stormbrood is literally one of those cards where I'm like, I wish that this was just Adventure and not Omen.
Yeah, I wish this was Adventure too. Like, there's very few like Omen cards I want back in my deck as a whole. I think Omen was kind of like a miss and should have just been Adventure, but you know, I'm not on this game.
Yeah, and I also think Adventure is just like, I mean, obviously, like upside. It's like, well, I can cast this part, and then I can cast the creature later, basically whenever. Where Omen is like, you know, you have the option of one or the other. Like, I would have figured that this would have started here, and then like Adventure would have been the like the progression of like, hey, now you have the option to play both, and like you could do one or the other. This is like you have to do one or the other, but if you do one, it gets shuffled back into your deck. If you do the other, then you obviously just get the creature and you don't get the potential like other spells half of it. So I think Omen mostly is probably pretty good, you know, on like some of these dragons, but it does really make me wish that Adventure was the actual mechanic and not Omen.
Yeah. For sure. It's one of those things where like it definitely feels like we got a nerfed version of Adventure. It's just like Wizards just like, yeah, we realize Adventure is actually really good and we shouldn't have done that. This is how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Is definitely how instead of like the opposite way where it's like, yeah, we did Omen and we just didn't think it was strong enough, so then we pushed it. It's like, that's too far. Like they just pushed it first before they should have.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily better to like have a mechanic and then scale back on it, or have a mechanic and then have to kind of push it. I think that there's probably a balance that's there that I do not have because I'm not a game designer, nor do I have any real ambition necessarily to pursue that kind of career. But I don't know. It definitely is interesting. It's one of those things that I would have figured that the choice between one or the other would have been there before the choice of potentially having both.
Yeah.
But also with it being an entirely new thing, maybe it's like we want this to see play and be featured, so that's why you can Adventure and cast both, and then Omen and only cast one potentially at that time. But it is what it is, I suppose.
Right. Moving on to the next one.
Oh yeah.
Sudden Pearl Kieran is 1 and a white for a 2/1 with flash flying. When this enters, return up to one other non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. If it's a token, draw a card. I really always see this going into the like bounce decks, so I think that this works well with like the black-white bounce deck that was running around at the Pro Tour, where you know they didn't get to have the Fear of Isolation. Now they have Fear of Isolation essentially. It's also a flash creature, so it lets you hold up like mana throughout the whole turn, and then end of turn. Okay, cool, you didn't do anything. I'm gonna put this in. It applies more pressure while also bouncing my nightmares or bouncing whatever I need to bounce type situation. So I think it could go well in the bounce decks. Maybe it's just too cute. Maybe you don't need this type situation. I'm not 100% sure. It just seemed like something that the bounce decks now get another card to add to their strategy. Will they actually play it? Who knows?
Yeah, interesting enough at least that it's kind of neat with like this effect having flash. I mean, obviously they are playing like this town ain't big enough, but like this being like a flash creature that like you can another flying flash creature that you can put counters on from the whatever the heck their 1-drop that cares about enchantments entering the battlefield. And this, I mean, you could technically like if they go to kill like one of your otter tokens or whatever, that you just like pick it up and get a little additional value out of it. So I think like the potential is there. I think it's like a neat looking card. I just think that the 1 toughness is going to be a killer of it, because I think with Fear of Isolation being a 2/3 and just being able to dodge like unbargained that, and then like burst lightning and things like that, makes it a little bit more appealing, where like you narrow it down to like them having to play lightning strike or get enough attacks in and be able to Witch Stalker frenzy it. So I think that's probably the worst thing about this about the Kieran, is just the fact that it has 2 less toughness, but it having flash, it being able to pick something up. So I think the potential is there.
Yeah, I think it has like the option of being good. We'll see if it actually sees play. Like I said, I don't know if it's anything broken or anything amazing, but it's one of those cards where like I think that it could be good. It could see play. We'll find out.
Next time on Magic the Gathering.
Will we gather?
Oh no, no card found. Disruptive Stormbrood. Apparently I don't know how to spell. There we go.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, this is one that like I'm not convinced it's necessarily going to see play, but it's one that I think like it has less ability now that I read that the Omen's a sorcery. I thought the Omen was an instant, so it has now become way worse. So, Disruptive Stormbrood, it's a 4 and a green for a 3/3 flying dragon. When this creature enters, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment, and then it has an Omen of Petty Revenge for 1 and a black. Sorcery, destroy target creature with power 3 or less, then you shuffle it back into your opponent's library. I thought the Omen was an instant, not gonna lie, when I looked at it. I guess I assumed it would be an instant, that's probably my fault. I thought this card might be playable. So it's probably a lot less playable than I now have originally said, because I thought it was an instant. That being said, I could see this still seeing maybe some minor play as a way to be able to up your removal count while also having a threat count, while also having a relevant ability on that threat of destroying an artifact or enchantment. So maybe see some amount of play, probably not. The black-green decks are already trash as it is. It's not like they're winning any tournaments.
This card is cheeks.
Yeah,
it's
a lot worse. It's a lot worse than I thought it would be. Moving on.
Get out of here. Get out of here. We forget it. Scratch that. You're probably wondering how I got here. Well, this is my story.
Yeah. All right. You ready for the next one?
Yeah. I already got it pulled up for you, homie.
Okay. So, Frostcliff Siege. It's 1, a red, and a blue for an enchantment. And then when this enchantment enters, choose either Jeskai or Teamer. Jeskai, whenever 1 or more creatures you control deals combat damage to the player, draw a card. Or Teamer, the actual ability we care about. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample and haste.
Oh yeah.
Much better ability. So I know that the Jeskai tokens, or Jeskai Convoke lists, just got excited because they could now go back to Boros Convoke and have less worse mana.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain why we should go back to Jeskai real quick. This card alone.
True.
Just being able to give your creatures +1 trample and haste is just amazing. Like, let's just always have Recruiter actively going every turn.
Yes. Base.
This seems good. So I think this could easily fit into the tokens list. I also think that there might be a blue-red deck that could possibly be running around with doing some shenanigans along the lines of like with this town ain't big enough, with Storm Chaser's talent, with the the artifact that we talked about earlier, the Corey Steel Cutter. I think that there's something here, and like it feels really close to just like already being there. But that being said, I do think that this has an option to actually be very playable. It just kind of comes down to like how the metagame shakes out as a whole, and if it's going to be super good or not.
I think that I'm kind of trying to figure out if there's like a good use for the Jeskai mode of it, just to get to draw a card, like dealing a damage to a player. because like the bottom, like the creatures getting +1/+0 trample haste, like I don't know if necessarily just Guy Convoke needed like a reason to give like their creatures trample, because a lot of the times they're just getting to the board so fast, and whatever the case may be. But like the fact of giving this trample or giving them trample, and you know they have like a 4/4 now a 5/4 attacking on like turn 3, that is just going to be infinitely harder to block and be able to get in more damage. That almost assuredly is just good enough, I think, for this card to see some amount of play. How good is it going to be in standard? Well, who knows, but if you can find a use and find a deck that could get some use out of both Jeskai and Teamer options on this card, like it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I do think that just the fact that like giving your creatures +1 in haste is ridiculously good. So we'll see. Like I said, I think this card has a huge potential. It's just whether or not the format is slow enough, I think might be the correct word for this card.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is technically a 3-mana do nothing spell. Like, if you're tapping out on turn 3 to play this, and like you don't have like an interesting board state already, or you're not at least at parity, it is kind of bad. And then like we have this Town 8 running around already, where it's like, all right, I'm gonna go to combat. I played top 5 creatures this turn. That's cool. You move to combat. I'm gonna bounce that back to your hand. Your creatures no longer have haste.
True.
So, I feel like it's one of those things where like, maybe we should have had more bans in standard so cards could get played. Anyway.
Well, I think the difference being here too is that I mean, yeah. So your opponent bouncing this before combat, it's like your creatures that did enter now can't attack, and you're not even gonna be able to get a card from this. So ideally, it's either like you choose one mode and you get in extra damage, or you choose the other mode and you just immediately replace it. So. And obviously, if you choose the Jeskai option, you're not looking to just spend 3 mana to then draw a card and get in a few points of damage. You're definitely looking to get at least, you know, over the course of a few turns, get a few cards and, you know, really allow it to stack up. It's like, hey, for 3 mana, I drew a card, you know, an extra card every single turn on my turn for the last however many turns. So
yeah, I mean, honestly, this is the way that oh crap, the blue enchantment creature that is worded terribly. The 4/3 with flash.
Oh, Enduring Curiosity.
This is how Enduring Curiosity should have been worded. Draw 1 card if 1 or more creatures deals combat damage, not draw a card for each creature that deals combat damage.
Oh yeah.
But you know, cards that might be playable, who knows?
Anyway.
Moving on to Rashaka's Bargain.
That wasn't even freaking close. What?
Nope, I'm going with it. You can correct me, but I'm going with it. Anyway, so it's a 6-mana spell that costs 3 mana and triggers beans, because why not? So for Sultai colors, or Bug colors for the OGs.
The purists out there.
It's an instant spell. You have to look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, and the rest of them into your graveyard. I do think this is something that we could see, unfortunately, Domain playing, because it does trigger beans. It also is another version of Stock Up, but this time it's instant. I also think that there's a couple of different decks that kind of want to be able to put cards in the graveyard. I kind of made a joke about Eddie Crab coming back into the field because of this card. You already kind of wanted to be the Sultai colors, and now this lets you put cards in your graveyard while still grabbing out the creatures that you want, or grabbing the spells you need instead. So I do think this card has some playability with it. I'm just kind of curious to see how well it actually works. And I will definitely be wasting play points to play Eddie Crab in Standard, while this card does absolutely nothing for me.
Yeah, just looks like another card that costs 5 or more, but doesn't actually cost 5 or more, that Beans players are going to be able to play.
Yes, the Beans players need more draw, clearly.
Yeah, it's, I mean, being more color intensive, because obviously for you to get that stock up type effect, you need to have 3 different colors. 4 mana for this probably isn't even all that great either, but if you're just like playing Beans, or, you know, you're willing to commit to a more color intensive mana base, then this could be a pretty decent payoff, and like almost an immediate payoff to like potentially go and find some of those other big cards that you can use to like power this out. And even late game as well, like just being able to sink mana into this later. Also in decks that are playing the Overlord of the Hauntwoods, you're just going to be able to fix your colors for it anyway. So
yeah,
pretty
I think
cool.
it's a good card. I think that we might be able to see a like Sultai deck also come out, because it's going to be Sultai Beans anyway. We all know it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it could be interesting. But I don't really have too much more to say about that.
No, because we have a real all-star on our hands.
Yeah, so this is the only card that for sure is going to see play in Modern. Probably not Standard. But Eugene, Eye of the Storms. 7 mana, legendary planeswalker. When you cast this spell, exile to one target permanent that is one or more colors. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, exile up to one target permanent that's one or more colors. Starts off with 7 loyalty. +2, you gain 3 life and draw a card. 0 ability, just add 3 colorless to your mana pool. And -11, win the game. Search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards, exile them, then shuffle. Till end of your turn, you may cast those cards without paying their mana cost. Just amazingly fits into the Eldrazi deck that's already in Modern. There's also a Eldrazi Tron deck that's in Modern. This card is just going to fit so nicely into those two decks and give them pretty much everything they've ever wanted.
Yeah, being able to put essentially Vindicate for cards that are just one or more colors is absolutely insane. Like being able to cast this and take out like your opponent's potentially like biggest creature that could possibly threaten it would have already been good enough. The fact that on top of it too that you get to get paid off even further for casting colorless spells. I know that this is single-handedly revived Tron Talks just because it's like, hey, they want to play like Star Sphere or whatever, so like they're going to be able to play these cheap things and then basically control the board, and then they're allowed to do like their Tron thing. But as far as like ramp strategies go, this is like perfect. Gain life, draw cards. You're going to be able to buffer your life total a little bit, but potentially give you an extra few turns, while also being able to draw. I mean, really just get yourself raw cards, which gives you the best chance if you're drawing 2-3 cards a turn versus 1 card a turn to potentially find like a Haymaker, a 0. Instantly adding colorless mana, no drawbacks to it. You just get 3 colorless mana. So this on like a subsequent turn when you have all your mana allows you to cast potentially like a 10 mana spell a lot easier. Even if your opponent's like planning on stone raining you, whatever, makes this a lot easier. And then yeah, -11, you win the game. It's just simple, easy as that.
Yeah, super powerful card, super strong, no surprises really at all. The fact that like you can quite literally just go turn 3, play Tron, and then have the ability to exile essentially up to 4 non-land permanents your opponent has on the field is unreal. Because like you get the cast off of Ugin, you make 3 mana and just play like 3 1-drops, like play 2 stars and another one, play like a map, a star, and whatever. Just like the fact that you can like quite literally just like have the upside potential of exiling 4 spells, like 4 non-land permanents, on the turn you cast this is unreal. And then it just gets better and better as the game goes on. Like, I'm thoroughly convinced that like you play this card and you pretty much are just winning the game against a lot of the decks.
Yes, sir.
And it also goes underneath Ugin's Labyrinth too, for extra good reasons.
Yeah, might as well.
It literally like it's just like, all right, let's go down the checklist. What can this do? Ugin's Lab, check. Win the game, check. Card advantage, check. Remove threats, check. What does this not do? Nothing. Okay. It's just insane.
It is definitely heavily tailored to, so even like minus like the second half of its static ability, like this being a card, if there's a format where we could slowed down enough. Because I mean, we remember like 8 mana Ugin seeing play in standard and just being able to like essentially come down, wrath the board, and like, okay, this is going to be a clock that slowly wins the game over time. Like this, even just being like potentially 7 mana like Spine of Isha on like a permanent that's 1 or more colors, and then immediately coming down, getting you cards and life. 9 loyalty is also a lot too. I mean, if you can get to this point in the game, like imagine slamming this, your opponent has just a few cards in hand. It's like you're gonna need a lot of resources to deal with this, especially if your life total is like relatively high. Like if you're at 10, we'll even say 10 or 11, and this is at 9 loyalty. It's like what do I do? But then definitely it's being used as like a fancy Howling Maya. It's like, I'm going to gain life, draw a card, and we're just going to slowly inch our way out of range. We're going to end up getting the cards that we want. So now we can 1-for-1 a little bit more effectively because we just have so many more cards. It probably, even if you're not doing like the full-on Eldrazi thing, which we know that like this is going to be most certainly see play in all the colorless decks in the modern format, there isn't necessarily outside the world of possibility where this is a card that shows up in like a 1 of or 2 of in like some of these control decks as a Planeswalker that just has so much loyalty, and a card that is going to just get you out of range from most like aggro decks of the format. If you're able to get to that mid to late game where you can kind of manage the board a little bit, this is going to be all right.
Yeah, I mean, card's just super powerful. Like I said, I don't think it's going to see like a ton of play in standard by any stretch of the imagination, but modern is just like salivating to play this card.
They're just in like, the Ugin waiting room.
Oh yeah, I am so excited to cast this card. I'm also excited to sell my kidney so I can afford them.
True.
But that's all the cards I had. Is there any you wanted to talk about at all?
Yeah, I'll just have 2 that I'll throw up real quick, and we can kind of wrap this thing up. Elspeth Stormslayer is a card that I liked more and more the more that I kind of went through some of the theoretical scenarios where like this card could show up and actually be halfway decent. So this is a 5 mana Planeswalker, 3 and 2 white for 5 loyalty, and you get the effect that if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. With a +1, that creates a 1/1 soldier token. So as long as your opponent doesn't remove this with this ability on the stack, it essentially gets to make 2 tokens. 0, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain flying until your next turn. And then a -3, you can destroy target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. So really, Model White is something that came to mind. Not that it is the deck that necessarily needs any more help, but I think it's a deck that can perform very well against some of the other aggro strategies. We've also had seen times where it does struggle to close out a game relatively quickly, and with this, Elspeth gets to play defensively in basically 3 different ways. So assuming that like you have an empty board state, like this just getting to plus and make 2 1/1s every single turn, not the most exciting thing, but it makes 2 1/1s defending Elspeth. It goes up to 6 loyalty. That's a lot of loyalty on a Planeswalker, even at 5 mana. So it makes it a little bit harder, makes it more likely that's going to be able to stick around. You're going to untap with your mana with this in play, make more tokens, try to manage whatever creatures on the other side of the battlefield that your opponent could potentially add, post Elspeth. A 0 that is either going to end the game if you've made enough tokens up to this point where they all just take to the skies. If your opponent has got like 1 or 2 flyers, like that's probably the most that they're going to have, and you have like 8 or 9 1/1 tokens, guess what? You're hitting for 14, 16 damage on that turn. You don't even necessarily have to do that. You could just 0 every turn and put +1/+1 counters on those creatures, give them flying, and they just sit back on defense and potentially just, make it impossible for your opponent to attack until you get to the point where your creatures are just so big that you're just going to be able to swing in, and they're going to have to make horrible blocks with what flying creatures they have, or it might not even matter and they'll end up being dead anyway. And the -3 being the most... probably the most unexciting thing, just because you're only going to be able to destroy 1 creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. But if you're spending 5 mana to kill something that's like 4 or 5, that's like decimating your board, and it's like the only thing that they have, then that's a situation where this is good. But really, making tokens or buffing your team is going to be like fantastic in the role that we expect Elspeth to play in standard.
I'm just thinking about flying bunnies.
Flying bunnies, this also just being like a way that you can combo with the caretaker's talent as well, just being able to level it up to level 2. You make a copy of another token, and with fountain port making treasures and fish tokens and whatever the case may be, this means that you can make 2 treasure tokens off of it, which really isn't that exciting, but like when you like level up caretaker's talent with it, and you're spending 1 mana to make a treasure token, it's like mana neutral, but then like technically it's white ramp. You can with an Elspeth and a caretaker's talent with a treasure token in play, you get more treasure tokens. But this is like a way that when you're making tokens and kind of doing your thing, you just get an extra body, and it'll pay you off for having those extra bodies by buffing them all on top of giving them an evasive keyword that, again, could just end the game, maybe not necessarily on the spot, but over the course of a few turns. Like, this is getting to activate higher loyalty, and the pump effect is a 0. Like I said, could just potentially end a game all on its own.
Yeah, I mean, I think this card's super good, super strong. The problem is I don't know if she's good enough for standard, as dumb as that sounds. I think that with her being 5 mana, a lot of the decks that she wants to be in is she's too slow against a lot of the aggro decks, like the Mice Package decks. Essentially, she's a little slow against them, and then against like the Grindeater decks where you want to be against, like the biggest problem with the Caretaker's Talent deck essentially is it does kind of lose to domain a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that like, she's a super well positioned card. She's super powerful, but I think the metagame is just like in this weird spot where I think it's going to take probably at least rotation or more before she sees a lot of play. She's definitely going to see a whole bunch of like. She's going to be super expensive for her entire existence because Commander players love the if your token will be made, create twice that many.
Mm-hmm.
So like, she's just a doubling season essentially for tokens, so she's going to always be expensive for that reason. But I think in standard wise, she's super good, but she's not good enough. As insane as that kind of sounds.
Whatever. Shit all over my parade.
Listen, man, I had some bad cards too. It's okay.
Shut up.
No, Elspeth is super good, but I do think we're in this weird position where as long as domain is super powerful, this card's not powerful enough.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much like you're priced into playing. Like, there's one deck where I think that they actually want an Elspeth effect, and I don't think it necessarily fixes anything. It does technically kill. Whatever his name is, Zur, in the domain decks, and their like other stupid like enchantment things. So I don't know. Like, it's a card that is like probably slots into that deck, but whether it's not, I don't think necessarily moving the needle on playing mono white. I just think that that's like if you were kind of in on mono white, that's a card that I think you want to play just because this is going to help you close out games very quickly while also like able to buffer your life total a little bit by just putting bodies out there and praying your opponent doesn't monstrous rage you.
Yeah, no, I don't think the card's bad by any means, but I just think the biggest problem is it doesn't fix the problems mono white caretakers has.
Yeah, it's held back a little bit.
Yeah, so I think we're waiting until I think after rotation, when we lose like leyline binding and stuff like that, and like it's no longer just like trivial to answer planeswalkers, I think it becomes a little bit better as a whole, and I think we'll see some different things going on.
True. All right, I got just one more card, and it's the Flamehold Grappler.
Yeah.
Look how many hands are there. Beautiful. But we have a 3-mana 3/3, so Jeskai colors, a blue, red, and a white for a 3/3 human monk with first strike. That whenever this creature enters, copy the next spell you cast this turn when you cast it. You may choose new targets for the copy. I said in a short, and someone said, like, why is a 3/3 for 3 first strike not appealing, especially with this ability? When I did that video, I was talking strictly just being a 3-mana 3/3 with first strike, and no other text on this card is like, okay, but it's probably not seeing play in the current standard format. But this effect is very powerful. Of note, too, because the information came from me, so you definitely had to like triple and quadruple check that the card did exactly what I said it was doing. But this does copy any spell. So typically from this kind of effect, especially in Jeskai colors, you would see it just being like instant or sorcery, where that would be copied, choose new targets for the copy, nothing new. This is any spell. So if you have something like, say, a Storm Chaser's Talent was like the example I used, that you could just make a copy of Storm Chaser's Talent and you end up getting like 2/1/1 otters. And that's also like a cheap spell that this style of deck would probably want to play, that, like on turn 4, like putting 5 power into play and kind of setting yourself up with like a very annoying creature that like you almost certainly need a removal spell for, because 3 power and first strike is a lot, as it turns out, in standard. But again, just a deck that is probably like, this is like closer to your top end, or if you can find a way to cast like more expensive cards without paying their mana costs some other way, you'll have to find a way to do that while also like the grappler. So it gets a little harder, but I could see this being a very decent like Jeskai like value type card.
All right, hear me out. Turn 1, removal spell. Turn 2, Corey Steelcutter. Turn 3, removal, draw, whatever. Turn 4, this with a 1-drop. Make a token.
Make a bunch of tokens. I don't know. I really, and I mean, this would be like 6 mana. I really want to play a Flamehole Grappler and then copy a stock up. That in the standard format is not going to be good.
Listen, that's going to be higher than the America's current stock market.
Shoot.
You can't do that.
Dude, I'm going to crash like the stock market. Are you kidding me? I'm like, look, I just drew 4 cards. Like, I spent 2 cards and I got 4 cards out of it, and I have a 3/3 first strike. What are you going to do? Oh, I'm just dead. Awesome. But
what you don't know is they have Lightning Strike for your 3/3 and Monstrous Rage on their double striking mouse, so it doesn't matter.
That's like an 8/8 at this point.
Yeah, it's like, listen, man, I drew 4 cards. Cool, you're dead. But look at the cards I have. Look at all the cards.
Oh, yeah. Grappler just ends up being a very interesting card, because this can be something that you play on like a turn 4 or turn 5, and then like copy like your 2 mana spell or 1 mana spell, and it ends up being pretty good. This is also a card too that in some other formats, if you have like some efficient like ways to flicker your creatures, this doesn't care about entering the battlefield and being cast. It only cares about the next spell that you would cast, because then you get to copy that one if you cast it. So for something like this, if you can find ways to just get it to leave the battlefield and come back, if we can see some Failure shenanigans or something like that in Modern, just as an example, where you could like cast this and then like exile it, it comes back on the end step, and then you're able to cast like double cast like a Fatal Push or like another flash kind of card. So you're not tied down to just only casting this once and then getting that effect to where you have to cast another spell. If you can abuse getting this back into the battlefield, then you can certainly abuse getting copies of spells. Just thought about it. What's the one mana return something 3 or less from the graveyard?
Reclaim?
Not Reclaim. I think it's Unearth.
Oh, you mean a Modern? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a good one. Helping Hand is the other one or whatever.
Oh, even Helping Hand. That's an amazing one. Yeah. Helping Hand, Recommission, like those kind of effects as well are going to bring this back. You even get a counter for Recommission. So I mean, 4/4 first strike is like, that's basically unkillable.
I was thinking of Parting Guest, the double white that you can exile. You can like flicker a card, or you can give them a card and exile it permanently.
Mm-hmm.
But you can target your own stuff, and if you target your own stuff, it comes back with a +1/+1 counter.
Yeah, see?
So, like, there is some, like, cool shenanigans. I think, again, the whole problem becomes, is this better, or is this strong enough to compete with Domain and Mono Red, or the Mites package? And I think that's, again, this is why Wizards need to kind of maybe touch on Standard to where we have some cool cards, but are they better, or are they strong enough to compete in this metagame? And I think the unfortunate answer is probably no for a lot of it.
Yeah, like honestly, of all the cards, I end up liking this card a lot more than I thought I would. I mean, I was a pretty big fan of Elspeth. I'm a pretty big fan of this Flamehold Grappler. But you're right. You know, who knows how good these cards are actually going to be, at least in the context of Standard. When, you know, it's aggro deck that can win the game on like turn 3 or turn 4. Super grindy, big mid-range deck on one end, and then like low to the ground, like mid-rangey, murder all your things deck as well, just getting you tons of value.
It also has a bunch of discard effects.
Yeah. I mean,
there is so much that's going on in Standard, and it's just like, I feel like this is why I think they should have, and like, their whole argument is like, oh, we got, you know, this set coming out, and I was like, yeah, and what's going to happen when, you know, Tarkir becomes another lame deck format, where we had, like, with Aether Drift, and like, yeah, there's a lot of cool, like, looking cards, and like ideas, and it's just like, but none of them are as powerful as me just going mouse package on 3. Like, me just curving out 1, 2, 3 out with mice is just better. Me just going beans on turn 2 into Overlord on 3 is just better. Like, cool. I'm glad that you printed like this 3-drop that looks cool. My 3-drop draws me a card and mana ramps me, and then becomes a 6/5 or whatever in a couple turns. Or I'm going to animate it with my 3-drop that's going to give it lifelink and hexproof. Like, it's just like, I have so much better things I can do that's just better, and it's like, cool. I'm glad, like, you made these cool cards. Are they playable enough though in this format that you said is super healthy or super diverse or whatever the hell they called it? You know, just like, these are some legitimate issues that you need to think about when you're creating 6 sets a year.
And there he goes, making me sad again, motherfucker.
Hey, you're not the one that has to go play in this tournament and realize that they're going to play against Mice Domain for 6 rounds straight into the Esper bracket.
True.
Or play the Esper Domain into the Mice bracket, or insert the combination of that 3 of these 2 decks until I either win enough or lose enough to drop down to the other bracket. This is like, cool.
I'm glad I was spared of that, at least.
But I think that's all I have to talk about. I'm done bitching about Wizards. No one can talk into anything.
Yeah, that's all I got. I think that the ban announcement like addressed one thing in Modern, and surprisingly didn't really address anything else. It didn't even really have anything like on the radar. There wasn't any talks about potentially unbanning anything, other than the fact that the previous unbans were successful. Standard not having any changes to it definitely had an effect on the format. Pioneer, unfortunately, is a dumpster fire, so it sounds like that's never changing either.
Yeah, I don't see Pioneer changing at all, unfortunately. So we'll see what happens, but I think until that becomes a real format that gets played, it's just never going to change. Despite the fact that literally there's no events going on for it right now, this is the perfect time to ban cards, unban cards, actually fix the format. We're not going to do any of that. We're going to wait until it becomes an RCQ format again, and then we're going to do major shakes-ups and piss everybody off, because we could have done this for the last like year and a half, 2 years, that it wasn't an RCQ format, and people would have had time to adjust, and then we could check the meta and fixed it. But nope, we're just going to let it continue to be a dumpster fire until we have to approach it.
Yes.
So,
weird.
Unfortunate, but I think that is pretty much the gist of what's going on in the formats. Hopefully Legacy's doing well. I think Pauper had a major shakeup, and I believe the community's happy. Don't quote me on that. Don't come at me, Pauper players. I don't know anything about your format yet.
Hack them. No, they didn't deserve that. They didn't deserve that. That was bad of me. I'm sorry. But alrighty, I hope folks enjoyed this episode of the Casual Spikes podcast. Of course, if you did enjoy it for any reason at all, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. All that fun stuff, go ahead and check out our channel is linked in the description down below, as well as leaving a comment, of course, leaving a like on the video as well. Let us know what you think of the ban and restricted announcement, and, potentially cards that you're excited for in the Tarkir Dragonstorm. We will plan on something for another episode, because I'm not really sure. I mean, I probably look at the standard Modern metagame after, essentially after bannings. We'll see how diverse they are in a week's time, so that'll be fun.
I can promise you Standard will be thriving based off of the same thriving metrics we have for Pioneer.
True. You know, I feel like so much has happened, and that ban list came out this past Monday.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
I feel like there's just so much going on right now.
I think that's because we live in America, and every day it just feels like a year.
You know what? It's just like, what dumb shit happened today. That's fair. All right. You know, love you all. Stay safe out there, and have an awesome day.
Yep. Bye.